Hi, this is Richard Varman here from Locomatrix, and today I was going to talk to you about invisible buildings, but thanks to Southern Rail, they have not been able to get me from Brighton up to London, and something this rather impromptu talk sat at my computer. Anyway, on with the show. I'm going to talk about three things. The work we did with location-based games prior to Invisible Buildings, that's a slightly murky, and the not so smart. Invisible, obviously Invisible Buildings, and beyond the Invisible, the games we've been creating recently and some other work. All began in 2007. My wife and I enjoy walking on the South Downs near to where we live, and having finished a walk we ended up at a pub, and in the car park there was a people carrier, and in the people carrier there was a family, mother and father, two children in the back, munching away at crisps, drinking Coke and playing video games. And it just seems such a shame that they were doing this and that they weren't outside enjoying the countryside. And so I thought, is there any way that you can make a computer game that children could play outside and have the fun of running around but still have some kind of computer game as well? So this is was my thinking. First of all, let's have a console that we add some GPS to, and then create some games for it. But then the process transferred to actually children like their mobile phones, and this is what a mobile phone used to look like, and work it with a GPS dongle. The thinking at the time was you could then create any game, arcade game or whatever, and turn it into an outdoor game, and this is what we did. I was working with a company called Future Platforms. They did all the programming work for me, and we came up with something that wasn't Pac-Man, but it was called Fruit Farmer, in which you ran around a maze, which you could create yourself using a computer-based game designer, and you could go out into the field and you could collect fruit and try not to be chased by the angry wasps that were running around or flying around. There's a video there on YouTube which is quite good fun, which will allow you to have a look at what we did in a bit more detail. And few people played it, but when many people said actually it's a really good idea, but I don't think it's good for me, or else they would have a go at doing it and get the idea and then not want to carry on. Became a bit despondent, particularly after I gave a talk at a conference called Over the Air, a mobile conference that some of you have probably been to. And at the end of the day there was a sort of junior dragon den, and I thought, oh, here's a good opportunity. Children are going to love this when I take my idea along to them. But they didn't. They said things like, actually it would be alright for my younger brother or sister, but you wouldn't actually see me dead playing something like that. It'd be silly. We thought about it and thought, what's the direction we're going to turn in to do that? And round about that time we got a grant from the TSB, and this is one of the things that happens when you are doing an impromptu talk sat at your computer, your phone goes off. I'll deal with that later on. Actually, this is much harder than actually being there with you. Anyway, that's by the by. TSB grant. Brighton University said, did we want to apply for something? It was a fast track grant. We could get 50k for developing an education game, and I said, well, why not? I didn't hold out very much hope for doing it. But anyway, we did, and a week after handing in the application form, we had 50k, almost. Anyway, that was really good. About the same time, as you can see on the screen there, you've got smartphones appearing, which sort of rather changed the whole thing. Some of them even had GPS in them. and some of them even had GPS in them that actually worked. And so we spent a year and trying to think of what it was we were going to do. I call it the year of the waffle. And we talked about how we would create this educational game. Brighton University wanted to do one thing, Future Platforms, who were working with still at the time. Hey, look, I'm in a light bulb. Ooh. Yes. Anyway, that's put me off my stride now. What were we talking about? The year of the waffle. I'm waffling. We organised a thing called Bogfest, where we played the Fruit Farmer games. And coming to that was a chap from Essex, a guy called Alan Drew, who was a curriculum advisor. And he gave a lot of good advice about if we were going to do a location-based game for schools, then it would have to fit in with the curriculum, something that none of the others had actually thought about. If it's not in the curriculum, it would be just stuck in a drawer. He also knew the schools where one could try things out and had even done some work with GPS before. He suggested we talk further, and so we met at a place called Lullingstone, which was a Roman villa where he had to go and do some research for some other things that he was going to do. And whilst there was the aha moment, and said, yeah, well, why not have something that is about the Romans? The Romans are being studied, where they could actually dig up a Roman villa from the comfort of their own playing field. So a year of waffle, and then about 6 weeks of programming. We had a prototype, and we called it Invisible Buildings. So it sort of ran along the same sort of format as Time Team, which I guess is a sort of quick version of how archaeology gets done anyway. And we decided we'd have a number of different things that could be done, like metal detecting, geophys, short for geophysics, and some way of simulating digging things up. And there would be some way of how we could send things back to the classroom so that children could then analyse what it was that they'd found. The problem was that even with the money that we'd got, we could only afford 3 phones. And 3 phones between 30 children is not terribly good. So how do you get around doing that? We thought, well, let's divide the class into 2 groups, which means that you've only got 15 children in each group, therefore round about 5 people per phone. In fact, the classes were a bit smaller than 30, and it worked out more or less 4 people by the time we actually went and tried it out. We thought, well, if you've only got 1 person at the phone, what are the others going to do? And the sort of master stroke was, let's have plenty of bits of pipe and things like that we can move around and get the children to have to hold things, give another child a hooter so that when they found something they could shout out, somebody with a clipboard, somebody carrying cones around, plenty for everyone to do. And in fact, one of the sort of great things about this when we actually played it was the teacher was saying it's the first time the children have ever done any kind of teamwork and actually got on and done stuff. Rather than talking about the game in great detail, if you want to go and have a look, there's a sort of quite a good video which explains more or less what's going on down here. This is actually the how we assembled our bits of pipe for creating a geophys machine, which actually does look like a geophys machine. We also created a metal detector and a sort of rather wild mole digging piece of equipment. Have a look at the video and you can see a bit more about it. So that was 2 to 3 years ago. It's now been played by about 4,000 children. One of the most interesting things that came up into the first time that we played it for real, had a rather solemn child came up and said, that was the best day of my life. And I sort of said, sorry? He said, that was the best day of my life. Thinking, well, either he's had a very sad life, or we've created something that's rather good. And in fact, this has been said on a number of times. I've heard the same thing by other children, and when we've played it at, as you can see this place, Framlingham Castle. We've worked with English Heritage. We've had children coming back again and again to play at the different sites. So English Heritage, I'm talking about that, so I shall carry on. We did 3 sites last year. We're going to do 10 this year. Next year there will be 2 teams, running in association with an organisation called Time Capsule, and they actually run the games, and we provide the equipment. When we were working with the schools, it was working with the Romans. English Heritage, it's sort of Victorian explorers, and this thing that sort of my head's in front of here, map of the world. Victorian explorer going and collecting, or looting as it's otherwise called, treasures from around the world. The children have to find where the museum is, underground museum, where all the treasures have been collected, and then go and repatriate them to the various different places where they came from. It's a sort of tricky thing what we're doing. It's very successful in one way. It's actually very hard to work as a business model. If I go in and play a game, it's quite good. I can take the equipment along, can show the teachers how to do it. If you try and run it separately, just get the teachers to do it, it's much, much harder. And we still haven't really found a sort of good, viable, economic way that we can do it. We're thinking that probably we will have hubs of expertise where a group of teachers can show other teachers how to use it, and watch this space to see what happens. Having said that, we've are now moving on, and we've created a sort of similar game. We use this. We've actually sort of got a games engine and graphic packages that we attach, and this is now the section that I'm calling Beyond the Invisible. We've created a game called Geocrash, so it's sort of in the stages of final stages of development before we put a version of it on the app stores. Called Geocache, it's aimed at the supposedly 500,000 geocachers that are out there. I'm not sure just how valid that number is. I'm not even sure that really what there is, why 500,000 people would want to geocache. Maybe some of you are geocachers and could tell me why it is. I've tried it once, and that's all. So it's aimed at them, but it's more specifically aimed at the people that might, like myself, that might have tried doing geocaching but don't get the point. Or it could be geocachers who have children that want to do something else when they're there. Aimed at families that are running, rather than to going bowling or laser quest, could go out and have a picnic and play the game there. It'll run on phones and tablets, but no pipes in this particular game. So, meet the Geos. They're a sort of rather idiosyncratic family. They tend to create a bit of mayhem. They are a little bit unusual. There's a free game, which I say will be on the App Store fairly shortly. It'll be in a sort of beta-ish format. Maybe you can try it out. Maybe you can give me some feedback on it. There's a story behind it, and there will be a whole set of geo stories. The first one will be a free game. It will introduce you to the techniques that you use in playing Geocrash. The story surrounds them taking a car and driving off in it, and suddenly finding there's some stolen goods in the back. They panic, they leave the goods where they sort of bury it in the woods, and then run back and they lose things. And you, as a sort of detective, have got to find out if it was them who did it and why. And what happens at the end is they end up in jail. We're going to do a Kickstarter project on it, and the sort of cheap reward will be a fund to free the Geos, get them out of jail, so they can create more mayhem and play other games as well. There'll be a sort of pirate game, there'll be a dinosaur game, there'll be an alien game, and there's a sort of whole backstory about a sinister group that are trying to get them locked up again. Again, watch this space. And then finally, Beyond the Invisible, I know you've had a look at iBeacons. We have been working with a site responsive theatre company that